extension of a road that was dead end south of that, and has lots that have, about an average lot size of 12,378 square feet. Density is at 3.46 units per acre, and the updated open space number to about 21%. So in that included exhibit, I just wanted to reference that there was an ordinance, or there is an ordinance in Title 18 that includes development along principal thoroughfares, which in this case, 5 Mile Road is considered a principal thoroughfare, just as 4 miles, 6 miles, 7 mile. And as part of that ordinance, it requires that access control and land line along these principal thoroughfares can be developed, but it needs to be developed along frontage roads, more or less, or for simple version, build the subdivision or build the roads or off of 5 miles. Not everybody has access onto those roads because those are the ones that are going to convey traffic from one point to another. So that was part of that original submittal, and that's what staff recommended approval of that initial submittal that included that private road behind that private road that was behind all those properties. That provided a rear-loaded access and provided a different housing stock that was part of that proposal. Now, the new concept, as provided, does not satisfy that part of the ordinance, right? It has roughly 10 lots running 5 Mile in that cluster, and 2 kind of off to the east side that are neighboring some existing properties. That was essentially a back and forth between village staff and the developer to really kind of narrow down, limit this access onto 5 Mile Road. So getting 10 down from the initial, I believe probably 20 that would have been approved onto 5 Mile, access onto 5 Mile is definitely a significant reduction in that. And then as part of that cover memo, I included just some of the numbers that would be referenced because it's an extension of essentially Audubon Arboretum, which was approved to the north, which had the modification waiver approved for the 40% open space. And that would show that if you combine all of those two with the Audubon Arboretum and the proposed Thomas Farm subdivision here, that you would have a net open space of 25%, a net lot size of a third of an acre, a net density of around 3 units per acre. And, comparatively looking at lots or subdivisions just west and just south of it, the development of those subdivisions was in the 90s. There wasn't even stormwater management plans required. There wasn't open space required. And the lots like just to the west of this, I think it's Old Farm Meadows, that I think it's like 69 lots on 34.5 acres. 27.4 of those acres are the ones that are developed. In this situation, so 0% open space, the net density was 2.5 units per acre. What's being proposed here is 3.46. But if that subdivision was actually developed with what is typical today of, roughly 20 to 21% open space, which in this case would be primarily stormwater management or wetlands, that would be around 3.42 units per acre if they built the same amount of housing on it, and maybe have less issues with potential flooding on those properties as well. So just kind of a comparison for something that's directly west of it that has very similar lot sizes. So that was just pointing out some of the changes in this development, the 62 lot development that was submitted with this meeting compared to that of the previous. And I think with that, I can pass on.
Thank you, Ryan. One of the things is this is a concept plat, right? We have 2 more steps. We have a preliminary plat review and final plat review. And so the focus is on some of the key components of this, which is the green space requirement we've heard a lot about tonight, talking about a stewardship plan for the open space and having it waived, and having to have a third party review and enforce it, and then the density. At the previous meeting, staff didn't go into details about the comprehensive plan, but I'd like to share with you some of the points that are made in our comprehensive plan regarding the housing element and policies for land use in the village that was adopted by this board many years ago. And so I'm just going to read a couple of bullet points to you so you can understand why staff was in support of Plan A and is in support of Plan B. And that is that the comprehensive plan goal is to encourage land uses and densities that promote efficient development patterns and relatively municipal costs. To provide adequate infrastructure and supply of developable land to meet existing and future demand for various uses, commercial, industrial, and residential, in this particular case, residential. I don't know if the Plan Commission is aware of this, the village board has been brought up to speed about the housing shortage that exists in Racine County and southeast Wisconsin, and that there is a need for housing in our area. But I digress for a moment. Also, a key thing which the Plan Commission and the board have to take into consideration is balancing individual property rights with the overall community interests and goals. So there's gonna be a change in this particular subdivision to the neighborhood. There's no doubt about it. You add 62 homes, 64 homes, it's gonna change what the people have come to expect over the decades. Also, the comprehensive plan goes to promote redevelopment and infill development, which this is essentially infill development in areas with existing infrastructure such as water and sewer, and enhance existing residential uses. That's another goal that's stated in our housing. It goes on to more detail in our housing policies, which is we should support a full range and variety of housing types at flexible densities as appropriate. So this is where the Plan Commission as well as the village board has the ability to take into account granting variances for densities, counting for amount of green space, depending on the situation. What are you conserving or preserving green space, or are you just what is out there? Is it of significant environmental corridor or habitat that you are creating a corridor or creating some sort of environment? You're preserving something of environmental significance. Also, it does state also encourage the use of conservation design for residential development in areas to minimize impacts to farming areas and environmentally sensitive areas. This is an old tree farm. This is an old commercial site. Yes, right now it's green space. There's there's random trees and some grassy areas, but it was definitely not, I would say, a environmentally sensitive area. This was for commercial use. Also, the housing policy talks about encouraging motorized and non-motorized travel connectivity between adjacent housing developments. One of the things that we didn't focus on at the last meeting was at the preliminary plat that's being proposed along the west side. So I have a map up on the screen. So these are the parcels that are in question that are being reviewed for subdivision development. So that the area in yellow. The developer is proposing to create an off-road recreational trail along the Claymont Ditch on the east side that would go from the expanded 5-mile road segment north, continue north. This is village-owned 20 acres of wooded wetland area and connect to the property that is the old or the new Olympia Brown School. And so to provide a non-motorized access point, which verbally the village has talked to the school district as well as talking with the Park and Rec Commission about extending that same off-road recreational trail south, expanded 5-mile down all the way south past 4.5 mile down to Crawford Park. So this would be the first step in creating that off-road trail, which is consistent with our park and open space plan that talks about the expansion of trail systems in the village. One of the housing policies that were also stated in the plan, encourage infill development that benefit existing residents, prevent their displacement, and improve the tax base, availability of jobs and community facilities. That goes more toward commercial, but I wanted to also bring that to the Plan Commission's attention. At the August meeting, there were concerns by residents talking about a drain on the municipal services. Both the police chief and the fire chief have stated that the addition of these 64 or 62 homes would not create the need for additional staff, and the location being in the east end of the village where they're already controlling the area and have access to that area would only be improved with the extension of 5 mile in that segment. And so they even went further to say that the addition of the 250 homes, the whole area to the east of Olympia Brown and Caitlin Woods, that also would not result in the need for additional staff to provide emergency services. The question about municipal service when it comes to water and sewer, as I mentioned before, the infrastructure is there. It's not as if we're putting a water main thousands of feet outside our service area. This is already served by water and sewer. There was mention about cost of garbage services. Well, garbage services are a fee that's built in that resident space, so every resident pays a fee to pay for garbage services. So it's a net neutral cost. By adding these 64 homes, it's not going to impact necessarily the cost of services for garbage. And the amount of linear feet of roads also that isn't a significant amount that would suddenly create a tax burden for residents here. those are the details of the comprehensive plan and some responses to concerns about municipal services or the cost of municipal services that would happen if a 64 lot development were to be proposed. As Ryan, just to reiterate the things that Ryan said, the proposed size of lots here are very similar to the lots to the west and to the south. So they are of the same density and design as what's already exists. One of the comments I heard was we want more of the same. If there has to be something, it should be something similar. Staff believes that this is similar size lots, suburban size lots that should be located east of Highway 32 in our village proper area with the population. With that said, I will turn it back over to you, Mr. President.
Pete, this afternoon, our police chief told me that the response times in this neighborhood are rather high, up to 6 minutes, because of not having 5 Mile Road. His opinion was, and maybe you have a different opinion, but his opinion was that having 5 Mile Road cut through would reduce response times to maybe down to 3 to 4 minutes, with a couple minutes of improvement. Do you concur with him, or?
Anytime we can provide more connectivity throughout the village, it is a better, more efficient use of providing municipal services to residents. Not having to circle around to 5.5 Mile or go through 4 Mile Road or weave through the neighborhoods to get to that area of the village can only be an improvement. And this has been a goal for the village for some time, to have that connectivity east and west. 5 Mile is designed to be an arterial road, a collector road to get from one end, east end of town, to at least the Highway 32, and then on your way out further west.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions of Mr. Wagner or Mr. Smith? Nancy, I think I knew you were going to say.
You might ask questions. Some of my questions or comments are in the same general area. I voted against TID 6. I still would stay with that. I also have an agreement as a board member, if we're going to change ordinances, we need to do it at the board level. I think there are some sensitivities that have been brought up in here that we can look at. I'm not sure that you can specifically answer them, but I do want to ask Ryan about the question about the sewage backup with Klima Ditch. If we extend, I guess I really got to go to Tony. If we extend 5 Mile or put this completion piece in, are we in any way alleviating that problem? We've got a way to make sure that's not continuing to happen, because we have heard about that on meetings both at the board level and here in other circumstances.
So there's essentially two things that are going on. There's the stormwater capacity issue with the Klima Ditch. Klima Ditch, in a 1% chance storm that can occur in any given year, which is commonly occurred as the 100-year storm, that will go right up to basically the top of bank. We are looking at doing some improvements with Group Pipe Wind on the Klima Ditch. Our biggest priority in that is to have additional capacity where we can get it, if it is now possible. If we put a crossing, a 5 Mile road there, we would have to calculate what that culvert crossing or bridge crossing would need to be in order to make sure that it doesn't impact the drainage of the Klima Ditch any further than it already does. The second issue that I see in there is in regard to some people talking about the drainage of the site itself. This development is required to do stormwater management, where a lot of the other ones in the area have not. As you see up on the drawing right now, there is a proposed stormwater pond located in the northwest corner of the property, and that site would need to meet the base level stormwater management requirements of reducing the 100-year post-development peak runoff to the 10-year pre-development, and then the 10 down to and also remove 80%. So that would be handled with stormwater management plan through the development. The third item that goes along with there is the sanitary sewer issue that people were talking about. There is a sanitary sewer interceptor that runs along the west side of the Klima Ditch from approximately 5.5 mile road all the way down to 4.5 mile. At 4.5 mile road, that interceptor turns to the east and goes towards the central lift station, which is at 333 4.5 mile. This property in particular, we have looked at the storm or the sanitary sewer for this. There's an existing sanitary sewer line that was installed in North Meadows Drive. It's a 20, I believe it was a 21-inch storm sanitary sewer line. And this development would be sized to, or this development would be installed to connect to that interceptor line that was in North Meadows Drive. That is a separate interceptor that runs through the area. It's not connected to the same one that these other individuals had issues with on Rebecca, issues on Finch, issues on Catherine, and whatnot. So it is a separate one.
We're talking about, if I understand this correctly, the green space that's going to exist is primarily stormwater management. And so as such, we're saying we won't do an easement with a third party on it because there's effectively no natural environment, like prairie or anything else, to be managed by and supported by an easement. Am I hearing that correct?
I would agree with your statement, and to build on that, in this particular case, we have found that there are a lot of third-party land trusts that were more prevalent in the early 2000s that were willing to take on stewardship of open space. They're not as eager as they once were, and so we're recommending that instead of having a third party who tries to, not order, but tell the homeowners association they need to do this, that, and the next thing, that the homeowners association should take ownership of a stewardship plan. That variance would still require a stewardship plan for the open space. That stewardship plan may not be real robust because a good portion of it will be in the stormwater pond, but there's square footage around that pond. It's not just a pond and then the outlet end. There is green space around it that needs to be maintained. And so a stewardship plan would still be in place, just that wouldn't go to a third party for enforcement. The homeowners association for that subdivision would be responsible for it.
Well, two things. I've had long conversations with the executive director of the KRLTC, and it's not that they won't take easements, they will be judicious in them, and they do hold most of ours. The other question would be, in the easements that we have for third party, the village is the secondary backup behind the land trust for the management of the easements. If we allow this to go to the homeowners association, are we still looking at us as the village being the backup enforcer or management of the stewardship plan?
If there becomes an issue where that, the result of poor management of those outlets and stormwater, Tony, I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn. I mean, what would happen if the stormwater pond were to fail? We would be that party responsible to ensure its operation, no?
Yes, essentially the village would have emergency powers to go and reestablish the capacity of the stormwater pond, correct the outlet structure for the stormwater pond, and then they would end up ultimately turning around and especially assessing all of the property owners within the development to unfortunately do that work. That's where unfortunately it would make more sense for the individuals within the subdivision to make sure that they maintain their infrastructure so that the village doesn't have to come around and do that for them.
Thank you. I do think this does fall, Mr. President, into some of the discussion we're having at the board of what is the village, what is our vision, where are we going to go?
Anybody else? Joe?
Yeah, I am concerned too that there's too much density. And whether there were 31 or 62 homes, you'd still have to address stormwater runoff. You'd still be looking at extending 5 Mile Road. So all of the high points of what this does are still going to be there regardless of whether there are 64, 62, or 30 homes on these this property, this development. I'm also disappointed, frankly, that the discussions with the neighbors and the developers, I'm pleased that it resulted in the elimination of the alley for sure. And it was called an alley, not another road, was resolved. Frankly, though, I think the green space issue and this much density in that area, whether our plan includes expanding or not, it doesn't set it, the goal to be at the maximum number. It doesn't set it to be at the minimum number. And we've got neighbors telling us that somewhere in between. They're not saying don't develop it. They're not saying that at all. So all of these concerns are well within what they're asking us to consider here tonight, along with all of the points that you raised as well, Pete. So frankly, I'm opposed to this. I don't think there's any other way to be, given everything that's in front of us right now.
Yeah, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that we move this directly to the board for further consideration and decision-making to encompass all of the matters we've heard today, as they'll be able to see it.
I'll second that.
Second, is there any discussion on Nancy's motion?
Well, I think that it's up to us to make a recommendation, yea or nay, to the board.
Well, either,
And
whatever we do goes to the board
and
anyways.
with all due respect, I realize that we can move it along and try to relinquish all of our responsibilities here as a planning commission. But I'm not in favor of just sending it to the board for further consideration. I think we have a responsibility here. We have a responsibility to the taxpayers of this community. We enjoy working with the developers. In so many instances, we've come to reasonable alternatives to make sure that all the needs of the community are met, and we haven't done that here.
Okay, so you have a motion on the floor to move it to the village board without a recommendation by this body. And a second. Is there any further discussion on that motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. I'm sorry. Aye. Oh. Okay, opposed?
No?
Can
Thank you, Joe.
I say something?
Hold on one second. So we'll move to the village board. We will, 2 weeks from now or next week? 2 weeks from now. So please come back. Okay?
So the purpose of moving it forward isn't to discontinue or dismiss anything that you have said. It's that we can make recommendations, and I agree in many places with what others have said, but we get a far stronger and response that will be given to you because the board can hear you and can do things that actually are outside of our realm. We are a recommending board only.
When's the next board? Eighth. I'm sorry, public comment is closed. I'm sorry.
For the next.
The next board is the 8th, is that correct? October 8th is the next. Please come back, please. 6 o'clock. We stand adjourned at that. Thank you, everybody.
Oh, exactly 7. So guess what? I